Speaker. This is an important debate. I commend my colleague, the Honourable Elise Archer, the Honourable Member for Denison, my colleague Elise Archer, for bringing this motion. The Minister for Police already has started with his childish interjections, because this is a man who has lost the confidence of his own police service. And I think, for the benefit of Hansard, it ought to be said that the Greens, having had their opportunity already now in this limited debate, the Honourable Member for Braddon, Mr O'Halloran, failed to mention the word minister. He failed to reflect on the fact that it's the government which has cut the budget as regards the police. Now, the Greens member made a comment about the police, and he made a comment that he supports Darren Hine, the Commissioner. Well, I don't think that's the issue of the day, Mr O'Halloran. I don't believe that that's actually the contention in this place. That's not the issue. There's nobody who's expressed any concern about Commissioner Hine's performance. In fact, I think all members of this House applaud him and regard him as a man of great integrity and ability. But he's operating under a budget that was given to him by this government. That's a fact. And Mr O'Halloran, you have become an apologist for the Labor Party. In fact, you may as well just join the Labor Party while you're rejoining your union. It's quite disgraceful the way that you've tried to characterise this debate today. Now, Mr Speaker, I might just point out, Mr Speaker, that at the weekend...
The honourable members only got a limited time.
I had the opportunity, Mr Speaker, at the weekend to attend the Crime Stoppers event at the, in fact, last Wednesday at the Launceston Country Club. It was a terrific event, and like all other members of this place, I was given the opportunity to attend and to sponsor the attendance of a police officer, and so it was a terrific night. And I was there with my colleague in Bass, Mr Gutwin. Who wasn't there, Mr Speaker? I'll tell you who wasn't there at this event, which, apart from raising money for the Crime Stoppers organisation, is also a show of support and appreciation to our police service here in Tasmania. Who wasn't there? The Minister wasn't there. The Minister wasn't there. Neither, indeed, Mr Speaker, was any member of the government. Neither was any member of the government at that appreciation event. And you can't blame them, because I don't think they'd have had much of a welcome either. But nonetheless, a non-political event,
Did you go last week?
didn't support it, didn't turn up, and didn't support it, and their absence was noticed. And while Mr O'Halloran and Mr O'Byrne, the Minister for Police, reflect on the global financial crisis, I think people ought to know that it's a Green Labor financial crisis that's been visited on this state. That's a fact. And while the Premier giggles, she ought to reflect on the fact that she's been part of a government that overspent her budget by $1.7 billion over the recent 6 or 7 years. They've overspent the budgets that Parliament authorised. While we're at it, let's reflect on what this government have done to the superannuation provision account. This government has spent the money put away for policemen's superannuation on retirement. This government spent the money. You spent the super of the police service. How could you do that? If this happened in the private sector, if it happened in the private sector, you'd be in jail. If you did this in the private sector, you'd be in jail. It'd be a criminal act. It'd be a criminal act, and you'd be in jail. And shame on you. My colleague, Ms Archer, talked about. My colleague, Ms Archer, talked about speed camera operators.
Point of order, Mr Speaker. The honourable members made a reflection on the activity of the government being illegal and we should go to jail. Now, that's completely improper. If he's got any allegations to make, put it on the record. Put it on the record, and we'll deal with it.
Down, Mr Speaker.
The situation is it wasn't directed as an individual. It was a collective comment. And if it had been an individual, it would have been highly disorderly. But I'd just remind members they should temper their comments.
Exactly.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. And I'll repeat it. Because if this happened in the private sector, you'd be in jail.
Point of order, Mr Speaker. This is a process that's been approved by the Auditor-General of this state, Mr Speaker. That comment is absolutely offensive to the Auditor-General, to the people of Treasury, to this side of the House.
There's a limited debate.
Yeah, that's right.
The honourable member to continue.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. They're just trying to waste the time of this parliament. We get 7 minutes to make a point. And I'll say it again. You've spent the policemen and women's superannuation, and if you did it in the private sector, you'd be in jail. You should hang your head in shame. And Ms Archer talked about speed camera operators. And the Minister wanted to discuss that during his contribution. And he said that it was a good use of police service time for them to be operating speed cameras. Well, it was interesting that recently it was revealed that a speed camera operator costs $40,000 per annum, FTE. To operate a speed camera, and a police officer on a salary on average of $80,000 would now be operating those speed cameras. It makes no sense. It makes no sense, Minister, and you know it. You've been caught out. Further, camera operators return around 8 times the cost of their employment in speeding fines.
It's not about
revenue has dropped, and we in fact now have access to the figures that in August 2011 revenue was $273,000, but in August of this year it had crashed down to $21,240. Minister, you now must reflect on the fact that it's a false economy, and you have actually got overqualified people. They would be better on the front line. They would be better serving the public, not behind the lens of a speed camera. And how disappointing it's been for the community to witness these terrible cuts to the police service. In my own electorate of Bass, we have in Lilydale the threat that the Lilydale police station will be closed, and in fact that is going to be a loss to the Lilydale community. They will feel a sense of separation from their local police officer, who at this time is Constable Terry Otis, a terrific fellow who's loved in that community, and he's a man who's greatly appreciated. The Minister stands condemned, and we don't